Hello and welcome to episode 16 of the Randomer Nintendo podcast. I am Angel, your host again, and I am joined by a Kevin somewhere in the world. Kevin?
Oh, I'm in Spain without the goddamn S right now.
And we also have Jason, who's also somewhere.
I don't have anything as witty as that. So, yep, that's where I am. Somewhere not as witty.
16.
Oh my god.
It's obviously not the name. Yeah, Kevin's unfortunately suffering in Marvel Snap right now. We've all been there. At least we hope most of you have been there.
Never mind. He lockjawed a Magneto into a Wasp. So going from 12 power to 1 power, I'm okay. We're good, guys.
Wow.
So you're no longer in Spain minus the S. You're now in.
I'm chilling now. This is my first win in
about 3
games, 3 or 4 games.
Oh, you're in Chile. So, I get it. You're now in Chile. You jumped the ocean because you're chill. Ha! It took me a minute and a half to come up with something witty, but I got there.
So I feel this is not gonna be really something for Jason. Actually, maybe. Well, this is what I'm gonna ask anyway. But Kevin's playing of Marvel Snap does bring something up that I decided lately. So I'm basically doing away with all the games on my phone. Kind of just like cold turkey, I guess.
Wow. Even Snap?
It's basically Snap and Brawl Stars that are getting targeted.
Ooh, so the big hitters, the ones that you play.
Yeah, because Hearthstone hasn't been really in my rotation for a while. But mainly, yeah, I just wanted to remove the games from my phone. As much as I love them, as much as I love attention to detail and character in Brawl Stars, so I might still keep up with Brawl Stars loosely, maybe through YouTube, because they still produce amazing animated shorts. Like, definitely check them out. If you're going to check out any, check out one with a robot named Rico and a vending machine. And there's another one before that was really, really well animated. Well, they essentially do these like character videos like Team Fortress used to do. Remember, like Meet the Spy, Meet the Medic. Overwatch does do that as well, essentially. And they do those as well, except they're less of a here's their backstory, and this is more like, just something that's a little skit. Like in one of them, it's just this, I guess, Southern Belle looking character making muffins that look like they're also grenades, and then she leaves her house and just starts blowing people up. But it's animated in such a nice art style. You could tell like it's a movie level animation. Like the quality of the movement and the visuals also are pretty distinct as well. Anything to do anything in CG is kind of crazy. Just how much money is getting poured into these. But then again, I guess these mobile games are very profitable because Raid Shadow Legends, as their ads keep letting me know, is celebrating their 4th year. And honestly, like the budget, say what you will about the game, it doesn't look like it's my type of game, just based on what it looks like. And it also just looks like 90% of these other games that I've tried and just didn't click with, like the Ninja Turtle one, which is like the same kind of deal where you just have a little army and you beat up someone else. Wow, tangents. I already forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, Raid Shadow Legends, 4th year anniversary. Yeah, even their commercials, and they do seem to have a lot of money to put into these renders for these characters, because, yeah, some of them, like the skeleton dude, the details and just like how well he moves is pretty ridiculous for like just like any kind of commercial. Like these commercials must cost a lot just for the animation side alone. But yeah, essentially I've just been trying to find ways just to streamline and reduce some of the chaos in my life. And I've noticed that for a good maybe half a year, I haven't even really used my WaniKani, which is like my kanji learning app, that I know Jason knows. When I was using it often, I was really using it. Now I don't really touch it. And anytime I do kind of grab my phone just randomly, it's always just to like boot a quick game of Brawl Stars or Marvel Snap, or just check the Marvel Snap store or something.
And to be clear, just to chime in as the person that's been on the other side of this, when he says he like grabs his phone and plays Marvel Snap or does some Japanese in his Japanese app, it could be in the middle of a conversation. It could be when we're driving somewhere. It could be in a social setting, in a single setting. It's any use of his phone. He dives right into that regardless of what's happening around him.
Yeah,
ain't nothing wrong with
I figured
that.
if I'm gonna do anything on my phone,
just pointing it out.
I think for now, at least for the time being, I just want it to only be productive. At least I can do the Japanese learning. I would much rather return to that. It's a shame too because I've been enjoying Marble Snap a ton, but it's just more of a distraction than a game I plan on like getting really, really good at. And Brawl Stars, I have just been playing that game for I don't even know how many years at this point. That I love that the devs seem to really care and really listen to fan feedback. They've redesigned, remodeled so many characters. They've overhauled the system where pretty much it's like almost not even like a gacha anymore. I don't know. It's really interesting. I will try to find a video during this recording at some point and send the link to Jason just to kind of. It's just a video that kind of talks about how that app or how Brawl Stars came to be and just to kind of give you like an insight into that game. Because even if you don't plan on playing it or haven't heard of it, it's pretty interesting. And it's one of the free-to-play models that I hope catches on more because, I mean, I love it. It's probably overall my favorite, I guess, mobile game. Yeah, I'll say that. Hearthstone was awesome, but I would say I like it more than Brawl Stars. I mean, I like Brawl Stars more than Hearthstone and Marble Snap.
For what it's worth.
But, excuse me?
I was going to say, for what it's worth, I got some numbers to your point about how big the mobile game industry must be. Its revenue in 2022, according to the App Data Report, is $81.3 billion with a B dollars. We freak out when one movie crosses $2 billion in its box office. The game industry is doing that 40 times a year in terms of revenue made. So it's very big. They can afford their fancy renders, yes.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, then that means they're going to be fine without me. So they can survive for a couple years. Hearthstone, I had thought about, like, maybe I should just play again. But they're literally about to start another rotation, which would officially make me, like, 2 sets behind. And this is the kind of rotation where it's the beginning of a new year. I think it's, like, the Year of the Wolf now. And what they do is that they change the 3 out of the 6 expansions that are out right now are going to get rotated out. So if there's ever a time to, jump back in, it's basically now. So it's also the best time to jump out because, once I miss out on this rotation, when it's at its minimum and let it grow, then it'll eventually be, I guess, too different for me to get back into. It's almost like helping my cause. But, yeah, I don't know. Lately, when I play games, I guess I've been left feeling guilty, for lack of a better term. Unless I'm playing a game with someone else. Yeah, playing any kind of single player game or game that isn't actively playing with another person that I know has just left me feeling guilty. Or like, damn, I should be doing something else. Which is true because there is always something I could be working on, but at the same time, I kind of miss just being able to enjoy games casually, which is probably why I still haven't played Metroid Prime. I mean, beaten Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime remake, whatever. Remastered.
No one's beaten 4 yet, I don't think.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, do either of you have any games that you're like, or just, I don't know, anything that you're stopped doing recently? Or maybe you're going to do the other way around. You're like, I need to pick up another mobile game. I mean, you, Jason, you've played a lot of passive mobile games.
Yes,
when I think of,
I do like passive.
Like mobile games, like, oh, you played none of the ones that I would play, maybe like Marble Snap for those 2 weeks. But I honestly
it was like
can't
3
picture
weeks,
you,
to be fair, and it was pretty fun.
Yeah, but I can't picture you actually like, playing a mobile game that's more than just like checking the status of something. Or I guess doing like a quick mini game, which is like Pokemon is probably the most.
Yeah, and even that I don't do. Now I just do Pikmin, which is significantly less time taken. But it's funny because I will like go walk because I need to get whatever thing in Pikmin. So, like, my gameplay is literally going on, like, 2-mile walks because I'm like, oh, I need to plant the flowers and get the 4-leaf clover Pikmin or whatever. Which is, I am playing the game, just not in a normal definition of playing. But yeah, no, I think for mobile games in general, I do prefer, like, the more... I think I was saying this before, but I prefer the more passive stuff on mobile, and I found that I'm enjoying shorter games more. Like, I had a really fun time just spending an evening, we talked about it last episode, just spending an evening playing Super Mario Land 2 for the first time. Got through the whole thing in, like, one sitting. It was great. Like, this, like, bite-sized games trend that's kind of bubbling up, and, like, some companies are starting... I forgot what publisher, but there's a publisher who's, like, they're going to make it their, like, MO to make... small bite-sized games and sell them as kind of these small experiences. Like, that's very interesting to me. The idea of, like, I don't remember if it was Epic Game Store or Steam, but one of them, like, half a year ago, was banging around the idea of listing completion times for the game, borrowing, and they might already have it, borrowing from that one website that tallies all that, and then making a section of kind of like small bite games. Like, that also is very intense. Like, that's a selling point to me. Like, I think I've found that I like kind of contained short experiences a lot. So I think if anything, I'm moving more in the direction of that. And of course there's exceptions. And I never beat my games anyway, so it's not like I really, put a ton of time into other games. But like knowing I can get from beginning to end in a shorter game, I think I am gravitating in that way. So it's kind of, I am trying to pick up more of that, and it's exposing me to a lot of non-Nintendo stuff. I mean, I know I mentioned it many times on the show, but What Remains of Edith Finch, like, I was just like, whoa, like, that was such a cool experience for me. Nintendo's never put out anything like that. Like, Sayonara Wild Hearts, another cool experience.
Man,
very
if only
bite-sized.
you had like a PS5 or a PC, man, there'd be so many games that Kevin and I could like recommend. I mean,
even on Switch, there's like 4,000 games. I mean, there's a lot of overlap.
No, well, yeah. I mean, Switch obviously has a ton of those games, which is great. And also that they're still getting more and more. But, like, there's already a ton of others that we know are really good. Yeah. That are, already exist.
You know what the other problem
that
is?
I feel like, oh my God, Jason would love this, but no, he has to hate everything that isn't Nintendo.
I don't, though. That's what I'm saying. But you know what the other problem is? And this goes back to you mentioned Metroid Prime. And it's funny. You and I were kind of talking about this the other day casually. But you mentioned Metroid Prime. And in thinking about like how I like shorter games, I'm at the point now where I don't know. I understand Metroid Prime is a remake. It's a very pretty remaster. It's a very pretty remaster. I'm enjoying. It looks great on Switch OLED. I didn't mention that when we talked about it last time, but it looks really nice on that screen. I don't like that it's telling me I need to play until it decides I can save. I'm getting to the point in general that save points are just, I don't know. Like, just, I understand a lot of consoles, Switch as well, have suspend states, right? And I think Xbox lets you suspend up to 3 or something. So that's a step in the right direction. But, like, I wanted to do the Tetris 99 Maximus Cup over the weekend, which, yes, they're still doing those. Yes, Tetris 99 is still awesome. Don't forget it exists, anyone out there. It's a really fun game. But they did one for Fire Emblem. So I was going to play, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I got like half an hour. I can power through that. And then I was like, oh, wait, I still have my suspended Metroid Prime because I was like halfway through whatever that first or second environment is, like the deserty one is. And I was like, oh, okay, so I need to go do that.
And I need ruins, Jason. Come on.
Yes, thank you, Choser. Yeah, I need to do that. I need to find a save point. And I don't know how long that'll necessarily take. And only then do I now have time for Tetris that I kind of allowed in between other stuff I was doing. It worked out in the end, but like, can you imagine if a movie or a book, and I was saying this to you the other day, Angel, but can you imagine if a movie or a book, like you're watching a movie and then you're like, oh, I need to come back to this later. And then it's like, actually, if you're going to come back to me later, if you're going to watch this, you're also going to have to watch the last 20 minutes again. Or like you're reading a book on a Kindle and it like rewinds the pages back. If you stop like halfway through a chapter, it's like, no. You need to make sure you read these 15 pages since when we decided you should stop. And it just feels like, I understand Metroid's a remake, so it's a little remaster, so it's a little different, but it just feels like this idea of like the game tells you when to start and stop. It feels very archaic now, especially in this kind of era of like...
I feel, depending on the genre, it makes a lot of sense because Alien Isolation, obviously a game much more recent than the original Metroid Prime, also used that same system. You had to run to these phones and like go through a whole little rigmarole to actually like save the game because like the pause menu is like not even like paused in real time. Like everything is always going in real time. So if you're going to save, you need to hurry the heck up. But, for those kind of games, and I guess Metroid to a lesser extent, maybe just because it's obviously felt easier since when I first played it when I was 11. But, because there's supposed to survive in these environments. Like the whole, I guess, concept is supposed to give you anxiety or just make you, strategize. Like, okay, like I'm losing health. I can either go back to the safe point I was just at, so I don't lose my progress, or you could gamble it, for lack of a better term.
Right, and
add some stakes to it. But that being said, though, while I do understand that it could add tension and immersion to your gaming experience, like it does in Alien Isolation, it obviously makes saving stressful. But I think they should have handled it, for modern gaming, because, even if I want to play this way, sometimes time just doesn't allow me to. Exactly. And sometimes I can't just have a game suspended and I need to play some Smash Brothers in between with other people. Like, sometimes you need, like, an option to quick save or something. And maybe that's possible, but at the very least, we know games that used to support this because, back in the day, I guess this is how it was. Like Resident Evil 2, you had to get ink ribbons in order to save. And that was a limited resource. So in theory, and on top of the fact that you had to find a typewriter as well. So you have like a save room on top of like
a save resource.
Like a save resource. So that's already like adding another layer of stress that you definitely don't need. But point is, when they remade that game in, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, it wasn't that long ago, right?
It might have been like 2?
RE2?
RE2?
Wow.
Might have been 2 years ago.
RE2 remake?
That's got to be like 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, I'm totally off. I don't know what time is anymore. You reach an age where you realize everything's just cyclical.
Fact check it,
and
Jason.
like, okay. But I was going to say, you reach an age where everything's cyclical and like, the last Mario Kart came out over 10 years ago. It doesn't feel like it though.
That's 4 years ago. Yeah, that feels right because I don't think I was at Santa Monica yet when that one came out. I was definitely for RE3. That one was probably 2 years ago. Or 1 year
I was thinking
ago.
of 3.
RE3 was like
3
a year or 2 after.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah. I forgot they did 3 in the middle.
Well, more like the first one. Well, point is, on regular difficulties and below, you still need to go to the typewriter to save, but you can, just save as many times as you want. There's no limited resource or anything. And the ink ribbon was saved for the hardest difficulty. So, you could play click mode, you could have the challenge, but, those that just don't have the time, I mean, yeah.
And to point out...
They shouldn't be punished for life.
Yeah, and to point out, like, obviously some games you can't do this. You can't save mid-online match. You can't save, like, mid-Mario Kart race. Like, some of those don't make sense, but you know the time it will take to finish approximately. Like, it's always going to be, okay, you're in a race, it'll be like 2 minutes. You're in a Fortnite battle, it'll be however long the time is in a Fortnite battle. Like, you have some sense so you can pace. With something where it's more exploratory, like Metroid, you can maybe ballpark, but you don't necessarily have... You can't pace in the same way, because that's part of the exploration of the whole game. Is they're not always like, every 20 minutes you'll find a save room guaranteed. Like, that's kind of,
I will say, like, they are, I won't say super close to each other, but you can usually get to from one to another in like 10 minutes.
It's not too much effort, but it's just like, in concept, it's just, I don't know.
Oh, no, yeah.
It seems like, I understand at the time, some of the technical limitations that made it so you can't just quick save anywhere, or you can't, like, even like if you look at like Zelda games, like it used to be you could save anywhere, but then you start at the start of the dungeon, or you could save anywhere, but then this and that next thing. Now, like Breath of the Wild and probably Tears of the Kingdom, you save in the overworld, you're plopped exactly in the spot that you left off, basically, or in the same little like nook of the area. Like, it's not like it used to, like those progressed. So,
I guess it depends on how many things they have active, but yeah, I mean, they definitely could add something, and will it make it a better game? You'll definitely get a lot of people complaining that the people that beat it that way aren't the true. But I think at some point, how many?
That's the other thing. It's like, who cares? Do people complain that you don't? No, but like the gatekeeperiness of it. Like, people go, well, you didn't watch 2001 with a Space Odyssey in the dark, so you don't know what it was actually like to be in space with Dave. Like that, no. I think gaming needs to get over that hump. It's such a mainstream. We just talked about $81 billion for mobile games alone. Like, it's so mainstream. This idea is, we're past that. I feel like
if someone else's enjoyment of something is actually impacting yours, then there is something that you need to rethink. That's basically it.
And I know you weren't suggesting it's valid. You're just saying people will say it, but yeah.
No, yeah. More than just anything. But yeah, you're obviously going to get the people that complain that they didn't truly beat it. Obviously, it just becomes I guess we'll call bragging rights for lack of a better term. It's just like, oh, well, I beat it like this, but they still get.
You know, it's a great workaround for that. Achievements and trophies, and if Nintendo missions, I guess.
Exactly.
Where like maybe you get a special,
which are I guess not Nintendo sometimes. But,
Nintendo has missions now with you can customize your Switch profile icon by doing certain things that unlock certain things. So,
there you go.
Yeah, like do that. Like, hey, did you speedrun Metroid? Cool, you get like super slick looking Morphball icon.
Because you don't even have to say. Yeah, you don't even have to say anything, and then it's just like, oh, well, they have the phase on Samus suit. That means they beat it in the hardest difficulty.
And then like you're not like
time.
Holding back people who need their pacing, but you're letting the people who want the like fuller experience to get. And by the way, props to Nintendo. We never talked about it. Missions and rewards are basically their achievement system. And it's really clever how it's in the profile. So
which is really
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but essentially just enjoy how you want. I forgot what I was gonna say. Blah blah blah. Why did I even bring up?
We still need to ask Kevin. Kevin, hi, you're still here. Are you dropping in Angel fashion? Are you dropping anything? Or in Jason fashion? Are you picking up any specific type of game? Like, what's going on with you?
No. Like right now, I'm sort of like in a my work schedule is so crazy, like currently that coming home like late at night and play like a few rounds of Snap is the only way that I can enjoy gaming right now. Like I started the Dead Space remake, got a few chapters in, and then I had to drop it. Like Resident Evil 4 remake just came out, and apparently it's fantastic, and I don't know when I'm going to have time to enjoy that. So it's just my schedule's just very, very front loaded right now.
Right.
Or just loaded.
Which for everyone listening is part of the reason that you may be now noticing we posted this on a Tuesday instead of a Sunday. It's all of us got busy over the weekend, but
so it is what it is. But yeah, like Snap is just like the perfect bite-sized game for me to just get a few matches in. I mean, like every now and then I'll play Apex Legends with the boys, but sometimes that's time consuming, and sometimes I have to wake up early the next day. So,
right,
yeah, just
I was going to say, to your point about Snap, that is something I really enjoyed in the time that I spent with it. Obviously, I didn't get as heavily invested as you did, or Angel. Definitely not as you, since you're now quitting the game cold turkey. But no, definitely the fact that like you can go in and know a match will take like 2-3 minutes tops is, to my point about bite-sized games, that's amazing. It made it really easy to just pick up here and there for a few minutes. And then I found myself, of course, playing for 2 straight hours. But still, like it's definitely a selling point of the game, I think.
It definitely is, but you didn't let me finish my thought. It's okay.
Let him finish his thoughts.
Wait, I didn't even hear a thought. What thought?
Well, because I was starting it and then we jumped to Kevin, but that's okay though.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just didn't want Kevin to feel excluded.
Oh no, I was just actually just gonna ask you, like, how many Fire Emblem games, basically because of the whole difficulty thing that we were talking about, how it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, how many games did it take for fans from Fire Emblem to like stop complaining about the fact that people are playing the game on easy because now characters aren't dead forever? Because that was like the first like hurdle. That's like, oh, that's the difference between someone playing a true Fire Emblem experience versus.
I don't know.
Because I know, like, I definitely heard a lot of buzz on that. Well, obviously, when Awakening came out, because that's when they first introduced that. But I think it was still like an option. It was like you could play with it on or you could play with it off. But I think the fact that it was even an option was like blasphemy. And I want to say it's like even off by default now, like on the modern Fire Emblems.
I think Engage might actually have it on by default, the revive characters. I might be wrong, but I feel like
exactly. But the fact that's the norm now, it's like
I thought you meant the norm was going back to turning off the revivals.
Oh no, yeah, more than just that, like it's accepted even in these other games and the people that did complain. Because I don't hear. I don't know.
I think the like if you want to call it gatekeeping, for lack of a better term, around that as a double-edged sword, which by the way would be a great Fire Emblem subtitle, Fire Emblem Double-Edged Sword. But I think it's a double-edged sword because that game was the cusp of the series basically flaming out in the West. If Awakening didn't take off, Nintendo said this before, developers said this before, the franchise would be dead in the West. And I think, as much as Fire Emblem fans, I certainly remember the discourse around that time being like, as much as they were like, oh, well, they're, doing this and taking away that and making it more friendly. I think there was some level of understanding that like they're doing this because like the games are getting fewer and fewer, farther and farther between. Like they're coming out less frequently, they're not performing as well, and like the fans kind of knew this was make or break. So if it requires dropping that barrier of entry, at least they can turn it back on and still have their game. So I think it's a little different than if you take like, I don't know, a much bigger franchise that's more established and sort of make that same proposition of making it easier for the non-true fans or whatever.
Damn. Well, that's good. Well, I guess not good in that sense, but yeah. So because I am terrible with transitions, we're still talking about Nintendo. Actually, we haven't even really started with our handy dandy list here. So I'm actually gonna just pick one randomly. Is that okay? Kevin? No?
This is random or Nintendo.
Oh, okay.
It's in the name.
Makes sense. All right, so we're just going to pick the third one from the top. That is, The Mandalorian, first half of the season.
Okay. That's me. Is anyone else watching?
I do see a note that says tied to Last of Us.
Yes, I made a comment because I know we're going to talk about
right
Last
now.
of Us.
So we have to talk about The Last of Us first?
It could go either way. The thing I find interesting is like the two sides of the same coin almost between some of what Last of Us is doing and what some of Mandalorian's doing. So do you guys want me to... It might be easier to talk about Last of Us first. Should we talk about Last of Us first and then I'll bring up my Mandalorian point?
Well, what a twist. We didn't even end up on the one that I have said.
Because it's truly randomer.
Exactly,
it's not just randomly choosing. You have to randomize it on top of that. And then I start talking about a different topic entirely from what you said. That's how you get random Nintendo.
So, Last of Us, the very, very divisive show that, some people either love it or they hate it. I don't think so. I think it's mostly beloved. I do know some people that didn't like it or were didn't really agree with some of the choices or some of the things they cut, which I argue aren't that big a deal. Which kind of, but we could get into that later.
I'm very curious what you guys thought. So, to sort of set up that question, for me, I thought the first half of Last of Us was incredibly strong with the world building and obviously the bottle episode of sorts with Nick Offerman's character, whose name I'm forgetting, and his husband. Like that was great.
Bill.
Like it was really good. Yes, thank you. And then I feel like and I really enjoyed the show overall, but I feel like in the back half they started kind of sort of sped up. It kind of felt a little more rushed. I feel like they're like a little, and maybe this was a reflection of the character, but it feels like they got a little less cautious as it became closer. Like I feel like I feel like I'm sorry, I'm blanking on everyone's names all of a sudden. Pedro Pascal's character and Bella Ramsey's character. Why am I suddenly drawing a blank?
Joel and Ellie?
Thank you. Wow. I was going to say John and Elliot, which was almost there. But yeah, I feel like as those two got closer, and this might be by design, but they got more reckless in what they were doing as a way to speed up the plot. Like he got stabbed because he wasn't watching his back. Like there's a lot of stuff that felt like just very they started speeding it up just to hit plot points. And what I'm really curious about, and light spoilers as we get into the finale here, what I'm really curious about is how
they should have played it out like in the game.
That's what I was going to say. How in the game, this is why I'm curious what you guys think, how in the game did they pace that? Because I imagine especially the final episode, the sort of killing spree he goes on, that was kind of like, oh, what's he doing? Oh, why is he? Oh, moral quandary. Why is he doing that? But I imagine if you had to play through that in the game, the emotional hit of experiencing that had to have been significantly stronger than just seeing it.
I used to flamethrower on all the doctors.
Well, okay. I don't know if it was the emotional hit I was thinking,
Same.
but that is an emotional hit.
You did too?
I didn't care. I used the flamethrower.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Because I watching it. I was very much I feel like this. If you had to play through this and be like, oh, I'm torching doctors. I feel like that would, I don't know, perhaps way heavier. Because the finale for me in particular felt kind of like every episode did a really good job of giving you closure to some extent or giving you some sort of cathartic release. Especially the episode before that. And then that one, by design, I'm sure, just kind of left you hanging of where do you, all this bad stuff happens and you have this kind of moral reminder of it at the end of like, oh yeah, like they did the right thing, like things are good, they'll be okay. Like, and this last episode didn't, which obviously is probably by design to leave you lingering until next season. But I'm just curious if playing it sounds like not really. If as you were playing it, that sort of moral ambiguity, like if you had a different sense than just watching it. But it sounds like you guys just kind of torched through the whole thing, so maybe not.
I mean, I wouldn't say there was more ambiguity because I mean, because we are playing it, because we are Joel for this like 40+ hour adventure compared to like an 8-hour television show.
Yeah.
Like we already knew, well, at least like like in my case, I'm like, oh, like I'm saving Ellie, so I don't know. I mean, I guess I kind of made the choice easier, but obviously, the fact that I had to think about it that way, and then you don't think about, I guess, the pros and the cons or the consequences, and I mean,
well, that in itself is kind of interesting, though, because basically, because you had so much more time for that relationship to sort of grow between Ellie and Joel,
it was a natural.
It was a no-brainer. It sounds like it was just like, oh yeah, they're the bad guys. You save her. But in the show, I feel like because it was moving at such a quicker pace, and somewhat again, I think by design, they left it a little more like, is Joel in the right? Like every episode was very much like at the end, like Joel and Ellie are okay. They did the right thing. The guy in the second last episode that wanted her to join his cult, like she took care of that. That made sense. You're like, yeah, go her. But then like, Joel comes busting in to save her, and it's like, yeah, he should save her. That makes sense. But then the next episode, it's like, is he saving her for the right reason? It seemed maybe, I don't know, like that, like just the parallel of those two. I feel like because the show is just 8-10 hours, but the game is 40. That probably did for TV.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah,
they very different. Yeah,
I mean, the show makes it obvious, like when it has all these jump cuts, like many months later, or blah blah months later. Because obviously in the game, you don't go through all that. You don't go through any time. Well, there is a time skip, but it's after because of the whole stabbing and like the rebar. But
the way that Joel gets hurt in the game is very different from how he gets hurt in the TV show.
Does it make more sense?
Did we say spoilers at the top of this?
I did very briefly in passing. Yeah, after I said he was stabbed,
I mean, we're gonna go like full spoilers of the game at that point too.
Yeah.
I
think we.
What do you mean?
Does
it make more sense? It makes sense how he got stabbed. Like,
well, I feel like in the show, like he was so. This is what I was trying to say, and I didn't express it well. But I feel like in the show, and maybe it's because he got closer to Ellie, and they were showing their relationship, like they were kind of closer, so they're putting their guard down. But they put their guard down with like their surroundings too. Like they were like casually sauntering through that university campus.
Oh, sure.
And then he just kind of got casually stabbed, and he like didn't seem to like.
It almost felt like it wasn't
the same
into a
Joel.
deeper layer that was intended.
What? I dug into, or they dug into? I don't know, because like when Rachel and I were watching, we were both like, they're not really paying attention to their surroundings at all anymore. Like they're just kind of sauntering around, and then he got stabbed.
Well, I mean, so in the game they are sauntering into that college town.
Okay, so it's the same saunter.
But but instead of just like some guy coming out of nowhere, like in the open field, he is tackled over like from
an open window or something, like another floor.
From like another floor, and he falls onto rebar that's sticking out of the ground.
That makes more sense. And don't get me wrong, I love the show, but it's like the first half versus the second half, the pacing felt pretty different to me. And maybe that's because they had to, catch back up to 40 hours of gameplay and get.
Yeah, I'm sure it's because they had to cut stuff. Because even in the, when Ellie goes to, I guess it's stuck with that man waiting for the medicine, because she promised the deer.
The cult leader. Yeah,
yeah. There's a whole scene that was cut out pretty much right before that.
Yeah, this is like the one where people had like some issues because actually before and during, because basically while you're waiting, you end up getting attacked by a bunch of infected for a while. So you have to basically work together with him. It's almost like developing a bond with this character. That then you get the little twist. It's like, oh, we know who you are this whole time,
right?
And I guess I could go either way on this one. Like the way that part was paced in the show, I felt like, oh, okay, you didn't need them to fight a whole horde of people. But I mean, I guess I could see how it could still add some.
Yeah, I mean, with that in specific, the outcome is still the same, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. The other one that people have pointed out that I'm like, I don't really have a good answer for that outside of like they just wrote that part out. But in the game, Ellie, well, actually also in the show because they do have a line mentioning this, that Ellie can't swim, like to the point that she's basically a falling rock. And multiple times throughout the game, like there's usually some water puzzle or you have to cross like a torrential current, and you have to figure out a way to basically get her across without making her swim in any way. And there's even a part, I think actually it's when they were escaping the town, where that little kid that got infected, that they also fall into like a river from like the top of somewhere. But, all water hazards have been removed. And people were arguing that by removing those, you're kind of removing like a constant reminder that this journey is impossible without Joel, because that's kind of what those mini games were supposed to portray, that she can still be like a sitting duck with no way to defend herself, but she seemed pretty capable in the series, or at least the series made it seem like she would probably still survive without Joel. But I don't know if you guys agree or disagree if like the removal of her fearing water as a factor actually was a factor.
I understand. I think there's some logic to, if she can't be killed by the infected, right? Then what's her like risk factor? So I get that, but at the same time, I don't think we watched, even in just the show. Obviously, we watched her sort of build up the skill set to get to the point where she was able to take care of Joel.
Yeah, that's why I felt like.
So I don't know if the water hazard itself. Yeah, I don't know.
And I feel, given your reaction coming from you, someone that hadn't played the game, still felt that like, oh no, she seemed like she developed it fair and square, or like. But I guess the whole point, I guess, is that they want dependency on Joel portrayed by Ellie, or I guess more so.
Right. Which I can get. I understand that. But like, if you look at like how she reacted when they were scrambling the town with the little boy and his brother, I'm forgetting their names, that had the large infected guy sort of crash it at the end. The way she was like not really holding her own there versus 3 episodes later, whatever time jump where she's basically running the show because Joel's out of commission. That to me shows some growth. Yeah. Now maybe it's too much growth to these people's point, but knowing roughly what happens in part 2, I kind of see why they needed the growth they did in the TV show.
Well, so what the game does is it goes through like an entire year, right? So it starts off, I guess, fall, then goes on to winter, then spring, then summer. And so you get those title cards whenever that happens. I don't think we got one in between them getting ambushed at the college and then winter.
No, there was nothing. I think
I think it might
have said like 3 months later or something, and that was
Did it?
Yeah. Or however many months. But it didn't I don't know. I don't remember actually.
Because I think that might be the biggest part of it, that we're not really getting that. Oh shit! This has jumped a couple of months. That's why
there was definitely a time jump at some point that they called out, but yeah, I don't know. It's just like I feel they could have benefited from an extra episode or 2. Maybe. I don't know what they would have done in it per se, but it just seems like they started really just going plot. They really just started hitting plot points by the back third. Like they weren't like developing; it was just plot points. They got her skill set up till after he got stabbed, and that's just like boom, 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 done.
Well, I think you feel more development for these characters, obviously because you're playing along with them in the game, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, of course, that's not going to translate to TV that well, because if you think about and this is my opinion, but the second half of the game definitely has much less plot development or character development than the first half. So I think mixing that with the pace of a TV show is probably why the show felt the way that it does.
Because they were very true to a lot of the game, from what I picked up on, at least. Like shot for shot, dialogue for dialogue, the giraffe. Like there's a lot of stuff that was very true to a game that already had a very cinematic flair to it. So if they were still trying to match the pace of the game in that same earnestness, I could see how if the back half was as plot developed, the show would fall into that same sort of situation.
Yeah.
That makes some sense. Yeah. I still really enjoyed it. I'm nitpicking because I like it so much. Like, if I didn't care for it, I wouldn't have this many thoughts. Like, whatever. So I am very excited for part 2 or season 2 or whatever. How do you guys feel about the amount of infected in the show, though? Because I know that's been a flashpoint, and now the creators are coming out like, oh, we'll have more in season 2. Did it bother you that there weren't? Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I just thought of it as like a human drama in a post-apocalyptic world, and the Bill episode really sealed that for me. That's the purpose of the show.
About it. It's like,
yeah.
What bothered me at the end of the day was that they went out of their way to talk about how the infected work, only for them to not really do anything with the infected.
Right. That's
with the exception of of the second episode where they accidentally step on like a twig and then the rest, because in the show they work sort of as a hive mind instead of like independent infected. Mm-hmm. So if one infected gets alerted, then the roots that infected those other people trigger the rest of the infected. And so that's really only used in that second episode. And they changed it from people getting infected via spores, which makes sense. You know, you don't want your stars to be covered in a face mask for the duration of the show. But at the same time, you did nothing with it. So at the end of the day, what does it matter if you change it from spores to tendrils, you know?
Right. And they've sort of alluded, if I'm not mistaken, that they might also bring back spores in some way in future seasons, right? I feel like I read that somewhere.
I feel like feel like they might as well just retcon it at that point, because like the tendril stuff, it didn't matter at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was totally okay, and especially in contrast to a show like Walking Dead or any of the other, you know, kind of post-apocalyptic shows. If you do like the let's say the more alien stuff with something like TNT's Falling Skies back in the day, like I'm very on board with this being more focused on how humans are navigating it than how, and obviously Walking Dead has that, but there are a lot more zombies in Walking Dead than there were here, and I was fine with that. But you do make a good point that they put in all this effort to explain this and show the kind of cool capabilities. Cool using loosely here, but you know, the cool capabilities of the infected, only to then have hive mind matter once, and every other time they're plucking them off one by one independently with no real connection. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It's funny because every time they did like shoot one or kill one, like in the back of my head, it's always like, oh, are the other ones coming?
And that was the other thing, is like kind of going back to my point, but it feels like as it went on, it got more like lax. Is like, you know, there's this huge, kind of what you're saying, Karen. There's this huge threat of, oh, they're a hive mind, they can all work together, and they're like, okay, we got the one. Anyway, let's go find some food. Okay, and wander away reading your book of puns and like shouting them out and laughing, and no big deal. It's like, where are the other ones that you told us would be a problem? So, but again, as a human drama, I did enjoy it, even if it's sped up a little in the back half. But it was just cool to see a video game get that treatment like that and become like the zeitgeisty show and like the adaptation to watch, whether or not, you know, I mean, people that never care about video games at all that I know, you know, like parents and that sort of thing, were like all about it. Like it was actually kind of cool to see it like transcend like that.
Season 2 is going to be very interesting from everything that they say.
Do you think they're splitting the second game in two? They're kind of hinting they might. Do you think it's going to happen based on what you know about the second game?
I think I tweeted this exact thing where, spoiler, I don't know if this should be considered, yeah, it's a spoiler, I guess, I won't say it. But yes, there is a plot element in The Last of Us 2 that will lend itself real well to 2 seasons, or at least a split season 2.
Because there is...
I don't know if you agree with me, Angel.
I agree. I could totally see them going that direction.
The thing that one has to think about as a Last of Us 2 fan is exactly how they split the season. Because if they go one route, fans of season 1 won't be happy. But if you go the same route that they went with Last of Us Part 2, then you have the video game fans that aren't going to be happy. So it'll be really interesting to see how season 2 plays out.
I'm intrigued. That's all I'll say. I'm intrigued. I do know there's another major character. That's not really spoiler. I just know there is another major character, so maybe that's what you're talking about. But
yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, Angel's haunted now. A ghost is guessing. But yeah, no, I think it. Yeah, I enjoyed the show overall, but definitely the pacing felt kind of front loaded, like you were saying, Kevin. Which I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on with Last of Us? Because that is what the connection to Mandalorian was for me. Was pacing.
Well, that is the last of. I need to say that anything. That's the last of it. There.
Okay. The lack of confidence in delivering that wordplay really held it back. No, I was gonna say that that's the thing that with Mandalorian that's been kind of interesting. Why I want to talk about Last of Us first is so everything I'm saying about Last of Us, about how it started really strong and the pacing was really good, and then it kind of like fizzled out, and how it's very video gamey, but like not, like they're staying true to the game, but they're actually being more cinematic. Now take everything I just said and flip it. So you have Mandalorian season 3. We're halfway through as of this past week. Its pacing is all over the place in the first half, but seems to be maybe have a back half that will make sense, and is the most somehow not a video game, but feels just like a video game show. Like, not like cinematic, like Last of Us is a game that feels like a movie. Mandalorian's a show that feels like a game. Like, everything feels like a side quest, a fetch quest, or like a cutscene with some NPCs you'll never see again. It's really bizarre. But and that's how it was for season 1 and I don't know, have you guys watched much Mandalorian at all? Any of them?
I have not, because the final episode has not aired yet, so...
It probably never will. They don't even have a roadmap. They're just doing it till the moment.
I have not, because it is
No, the last episode of the season,
Fair.
I mean...
Oh, the season. I thought you meant the show. I was like, wow, okay, you're never watching. But like season 1, 2, you've seen, Angel?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's always been a little video gamey, right? Like, it was kind of a monster of the week. There'd always be like a new quest with new characters, and you go do it, and then he literally upgrades his armor like he's Samus or something after every so often of events. So that's always been there. Yes, but this one, like, it's getting a little better with each episode, but I swear, the first episode feels like one of those compilations you watch on YouTube of like an open world RPG where you just kind of like jump around and like the cutscenes don't connect, but like there's gameplay between them that you should be playing, but if you're just watching the compilation on YouTube, it's just like a weird hodgepodge. Like, it was bizarre. And it's starting to kind of, sort of, maybe find its footing, but like, it's the most gamey, non-game based thing I've seen. And it's just so funny to be watching that right after the most true to a video game adaptation probably that there's been, which also feels nothing like really a video game because it's so cinematic to begin with in Last of Us. But yeah, I don't know where they're going with Mandalorian, but I'm a little concerned, confused. I'm not sure what. They are leaning in on the video game thing a lot more. They have like a straight up Star Fox sequence in the first episode or two. I think it's the first episode. And then they have like a borderline like Metroid exploring empty caverns of a planet sequence. And then they have like what was the third one? There's another one that I was watching like, oh my god, this feels like a video game. I forgot what it was. But basically like they're leaning all the way in on it to mix results. But it's just interesting to have a flagship show like The Mandalorian, which is Disney Plus's flagship show. Let's be honest. It's the show. And it's just sort of, I don't even want to call it spinning its wheels. It's just not, I don't know where it's going, which when you're halfway through a season, to not have any idea what exactly they're trying to do, it's weird. So in the same way that halfway through, or like 3 episodes into Last of Us, I was like, oh my god, the show's amazing. And then as the rest of the season developed, I'm like, okay, it's great. Maybe amazing was strong. It's great. This one, I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. And I'm kind of hoping in these last few episodes coming up, maybe it will make sense. But it's just such a weird thing to be watching a show and have absolutely no idea what exactly they're trying to do. So that's all I wanted to say about Mandalorian, but we had to talk about Last of Us first so I could do the contrast, essentially. I am going to a panel for it on Friday for Paley Fest with the Paley Center. Maybe they'll explain the plot there. I don't know, but I'm just hoping to see an animatronic Grogu on stage, which I don't think is going to happen, but I could hope. But I'll be sure to say hi to Pedro Pascal for you guys if he's there. So.
Well, speaking of Pedro Pascal, we almost, maybe, possibly saw him 2 weeks ago when we were at Disneyland.
Well, do you mean him or just someone dressed in a Mandalorian like outfit?
No, actually him, dressed up as the Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, we had a theory, of course, that what better way to promote the Mandalorian than Pedro Pascal spend all day in a suit where it could be anyone, but they know and he knows it's him.
Yeah, like he'll only poke his head out once. There'll be like that one stray picture that will hit the internet, and yeah.
I mean they've done that. They had Josh Gad run the Jungle Cruise, and then they did like a 2-minute video.
Yeah, they also had Johnny Depp appear in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride.
Right, exactly. So you never know. So but he wasn't there when we were there.
So if anything, it probably was true. It's a good chance it was true.
Well, if he was outside, but it was raining, so the Mandalorian and his busker armor or whatever couldn't handle the rain, so they kept him inside. So.
Well, point is, in Disneyland, we spent a decent amount of time in Toontown, and actually, no, I guess that was me. Yeah. Sorry, my bad. Because they have a new ride, the Mickey's Runaway Railway. I want to say that's what it was called.
That Mickey and Minnie's. The genders are equal. Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway.
Okay. Which is a new, dark ride? I think that's their term.
It's like an old school dark ride, but modernized, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, a amazing showcase of like projection technology, just super cool. So, the colors are vibrant. The world just looks crazy, all without glasses or anything. I don't know. It's just a very fun, quick, and immersive ride. Like basically what I wish Mario Kart had committed to. Like one or the other. But, we already talked enough about that. But, otherwise...
Well, if you want to draw the comparison, I have some thoughts there. But we should let's describe the ride, and then I do have a comparison I want to make, because it's weirdly similar, the two of them, in many ways.
I'll allow
it. Should I just say... Do we want to explain the ride first? Like, kind of what happens?
Oh. Well, I mean, yeah, you're on a train, the railway. And... you're basically on the track, and essentially the train falls apart, and you're just spinning through different colorful, cartoony worlds where everything around you is projected and animated to look like you jumped into a cartoon, essentially.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, and the projections literally go everywhere: the floor, the walls, just not the ceiling. But
they use a technique you may be familiar with out there, listeners, and maybe Kevin, you as well, called projection mapping, where basically they're able to perfectly map these animations and projections onto shapes of all sizes and shapes. And basically, like, you have Mickey's head, and his head can be a full projection animation of an animated Mickey face that only projects onto that shape and projects correctly and looks like it comes to life. Nintendo does the same stuff with Universal at the Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge ride. Water, clouds, swamps, all those have like animated faces, the exact shape of the physical object, but it's digitally animated. So you may have seen it, like if you ever see those building projections where they like do like snow falling on a building, or like some sort of laser light show, and like the building has like animations on it, or like those videos from Europe of like cathedrals with like fancy like butterfly animations flying around, and they're somehow perfectly mapped to just the building and they don't go beyond the building. It's that, but like super souped up version of that technology that they're using both at Mario Kart and more so at Mickey's Runaway Railway. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of tricky to say, huh?
It is.
Yeah, well, Toontown, what else? I mean, they had a new fountain. Honestly, I couldn't really tell much that was new or different outside of the fountain and the ride itself, obviously.
I got a big one. The Hills. Not the reality show from 10 years ago. So, this gonna sound stupid, but... So if you look at the hills of Toontown, they're these nice multi-layered textured cartoony hills. And if you go to Nintendo World and you look at the hills of Nintendo World, they're also nice cartoony textured hills. The difference is Disney's are seamless, and Nintendo Worlds you can actually see where the individual pieces of board that make up the backdrop are. Like you can see the seams. And that sounds really silly, but it really jumped out at me. So I feel like I had to point it out. But it is interesting, though, that within a month, roughly, Disney and Universal, kind of, maybe coincidentally, maybe not, both have kind of a very similar thing with Toontown and Nintendo World, with Mickey's Runaway Railway, God, that's hard to say, and with, like, Bowser's Challenge, the Mario Kart ride, in that they're both these colorful, over, like, exaggerated, super, like, lively feeling experiences where you walk in and these like cartoony worlds you're used to are like larger than life and right in front of you. You could like, go into Roger Rabbit's house. You could like go into a warp pipe, or you can, you see enemies moving around. You see the fountain with Mickey and Minnie dancing. Like it's very like the parallels and the color palettes and the size even are actually quite similar. And then both of them have a ride that do this projection mapping stuff that are quite similar, and they're taking a very chaotic, over-the-top thing, cartoons with all their zaniness, or Mario Kart, and they're using projection mapping to bring it to life in this like very digital meets physical way. And they both do it very well in their respective ways. I personally lean more towards Mario Kart, just because I love the frenzy of it all. But I know you were saying, Angel, that even just now here on the thing a few minutes ago, that you prefer the Mickey one because you just get to take it all in and kind of experience it versus like trying to like play through it, right?
Yep, exactly.
But they're kind of like very like the like underlying like thesis statement of what these two little side parks are inside their bigger theme parks are like eerily similar for coming out a month apart by probably coincidence. So it's just kind of interesting to like, and we experienced them a week apart. So it's really interesting to be at Nintendo World for a whole day and then go to Toontown and just kind of be like, wow, this is like, it's off in the back corner of the park, just like Universal. It's very colorful, just like with Nintendo World at Universal. Like it is very, the parallels are very strong. It's very A Bug's Life and Ants, if you remember how close those came out and how they were like the same but different in a lot of ways. So you can't go wrong with either. But and Toontown is definitely colorful. And Nintendo World, to be fair, has a lot more interactive stuff, a lot more animatronic moving things in the outdoor areas. Obviously, the power band, but like there's definitely an overlying similarity between them that was interesting to experience, literally a week apart. So
yeah,
I don't know if you're gonna go anywhere near that with those thoughts, but that's where my head went when we were in Toontown. It was just wow, this is like Nintendo World, but not.
Well, definitely curious to see how they continue to develop it, even though they've already been around for a long time and it's barely changed.
And that's the funny thing. That's the funny thing. I'm like comparing it to Nintendo World. If anything, Nintendo World should be compared to Toontown because Toontown came first. It's just this relaunch happened to be 3 weeks after Nintendo World relaunched. So,
Not that,
or launched.
I guess it need to change. It's already pretty good as it is, but
they had to
I
get
guess
some fresh
we just
paint.
want to see something different. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, literally, the again, not to go back to those hills. The hills look so much better now. Like in Toontown, they were faded before. Now they look really vibrant, and they have little Easter eggs in them, and yeah, it's good stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's over the hill?
Us in approximately 6 years.
What does that mean?
The Wii U and 3DS eShop.
Hold on.
Being over the hill means you're 40.
What does that mean?
Being over the hill means you're 40. So Angel and I, at least, are going to be 40 in like 6-ish years.
That's what that means?
Yeah, over the hill is a term for you're 40 or over. Yeah, which is silly because like most people's median age is now like 50, not 40. It's like 45 maybe. So it should be higher, but that's what that means.
Interesting.
I am never going over the hill.
That could have some dark ramifications, what you just said. I hope you make it over the hill.
Well, actually, no. In that case, the 3DS and Wii U eShop are not over the hill. They're
just dead.
Yeah. I thought over the hill meant dead.
Rip.
Yeah, no, that would be under the ground if they're dead. Over the hill would be not the same.
Yeah.
But yes, the one interesting thing about us recording this not on our usual schedule is we're actually recording this about, what time is it? 4 hours after that little orange guy with the tiny feet and the big smile was laid to rest. The little eShop bag man from the 3DS. You know who I'm talking about? That little guy that like dances around. Actually, I don't think he's technically dead. I think they're animating his corpse. Like if you open the eShop on your 3DS, I think they kind of like do the thing where they're like playing puppeteer with the dead body. Like I think he still dances around when it loads, but then nothing's there once it loads. So yeah, but it's yeah. We have officially said goodbye, I guess, to the 3DS and Wii U eShop. Over 1,000 games, I believe, between the two are simply no longer legally available to purchase anywhere. I believe 500 of them or 400 of them are virtual consoles. So there's games, legacy Nintendo games, that you have no way to, again, legally play, which is interesting given Nintendo now is drip feeding, Switch Online with maybe a game a month or 3 games a month. So kind of interesting. But yeah, I feel like we we kind of didn't do a like, oh, here's the games to download that a lot of different people that have podcasts and articles and stuff did. But one thing I haven't seen as many people talk about, and why I wanted to bring it up, is we're not just in mourning for the loss of the little orange man and his, I don't know if he's a man, the little orange bag and his games, but also the world they lived in. Like that eShop, those eShops, Nintendo doesn't have that whimsy anymore as much. And that's something that isn't, you know, you can illegally pirate and still enjoy if you want. Not that we endorse piracy, but like you can't get back that kind of character that Nintendo used to have with the eShops. And I think there's people that try and emulate it decently well. We talked about a while ago the Playdate and how I know, Angel, you weren't super sold on yours, and I wasn't using mine as much as I thought. They announced a few weeks ago something called Catalog, which is their own little shop of curated games. And among other things, one, when you get a new game, just like with the first season, it's a little gift you open, just like Nintendo used to do. But the fun one is when you want to buy a game, you crank.
The way Nintendo used to.
Like Nintendo used to do. Yeah, the good old days. But no, to buy a game, you crank the crank, which is the most Nintendo thing Nintendo themselves have never done. Like, it's just such a like silly way to buy a game, but it's so Nintendo. And I feel like, you know, we lost. That's what we're losing with the eShop closing on those two systems, is we're losing the jazzy elevator music. We're losing the little download bar that isn't just a download bar, but it's Mario running around, and occasionally it's some other character, or it's, you know, the little bad guy doing his dance, or we're losing like the whimsy of it all for something that obviously is a little more standard, which makes sense because, you know, this isn't like novel for Nintendo anymore. When they first did the Wii shop, and if you move on to like the eShop and on the 3DS and Wii, like for them it was still new, it was still fresh. They still were like, look how Nintendo-y it is. Now it'd be like, you know, can you imagine if Nintendo's like, hey, every time you boot up your system, we're gonna do a little song and dance just because like we're Nintendo. Like you'd be like, nah, it's okay, just boot the system. So that's partly why I don't think it's there anymore. It's just so standard now. But it was a big part of like Nintendo's identity with those consoles, and that whimsy's kind of gone. So that's really what I'm mourning here. Is for lack of a better word, is we lost the whimsy. I would love to see for the Switch successor if they bring it back a little. Yeah, I mean it is kind of sad in a way. We lost whimsy with Nintendo in a lot of ways because like we didn't just lose it with like the eShop music or like the little dancing orange guy. We lost it in even how they market. I mean, think about. And this isn't necessarily like a knock against them, but think about their marketing in that era of Wii U and 3DS versus their marketing now. It was so like personality driven. It felt very personal. You know, it was like Miyamoto and Iwata and Reggie, and they were doing silly memes and they were being like whatever, but it felt like they had a closer connection with fans. Now it's a lot more corporate, a lot more stagnant, a lot more like the big message because they're pushing the message because they have a much bigger audience, right? So like, you know, the people that were into the weird quirky Nintendo are the diehard fans. I don't know if random Joe who bought their Switch to play Witcher 3 on the go, for example, is going to be like, oh, that Miyamoto's so silly. Oh, Iwata's holding a banana. No way. Like, they wouldn't appreciate it in the same way. So I get why it's standardized now.
I think the fact that you even know who Miyamoto and Iwata are.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Miyamoto has sort of transcended. I think he has the advantage of being like the video game godfather at this point in public conscious.
So you're telling
me really
I could go up to anybody and ask them, hey, do you know who Miyamoto is?
Not anybody, but I would bet you more people would actually, anyone that like follows gaming might actually know. I mean,
okay, there you go.
I think he's going to be
anyone that follows gaming.
Yeah. But I don't mean like Nintendo fans specifically. That's what I'm saying. Like anyone who like, I don't know. I guess my point is that like we lost, like the closing of the eShop's kind of like the end of a certain chapter of Nintendo that was already on the downward trend. Like, you know, we haven't seen this kind of whimsy from Nintendo in a while, but like this was sort of like the period at the end of the sentence. So it's just kind of interesting to like see it go. And I was starting to say, I think Switch 2, like if they bring back a little, you know, maybe have some fun progress bar animations or maybe bring back some jazzy music. You don't need to go all in. And you certainly, if you're Nintendo, don't need to go back to the way you browse those old shops because, oh my God, I didn't go back and browse up. I was watching people's videos of recommendations and someone was going through the 3DS's like carousel for buying things and shopping. One, it's so slow, and two, it's just so inefficient. Like those interfaces are not good shopping interfaces, but they were fun. And if they can capture a little of that fun with some music or a download progress bar, like I was saying, like sure, do that in the Switch too. Why not? But Yeah, I think there's like they were very much relics of their era, and that era of Nintendo doesn't really exist anymore. So it's just kind of weird to see it just like that was, like I said, the period at the end of Nintendo. It's kind of weird to just see it end like that. So that's why I wanted to talk about it and to say goodbye to our little orange bag friend who never had a name. Oh, and the bunny from Badger Arcade. He's also gone now. And the swap note lady, Nikki. There's a lot of things that I just realized like don't exist anymore. Remember when the guy from Pushmo, Mallow, was going to be like a character for Nintendo, or Dylan from Dylan's Rolling Western? Where'd those characters go? Like, all of it's just gone. Literally just evaporated. It's weird to think about.
Yeah, and a little depressing, but we gotta carry on.
We gotta forge through. Gotta push through.
Yeah, push through. Just how Pushmo would.
Just like Mallow would. R.I.P. Mallow. R.I.P.
All right, well, I guess that leaves us with the house cleaning then.
Housekeeping?
House.
Housekeeping.
All right, we'll go with yours. All right, Jason, if you would.
Oh, we're back to me? Oh, okay. One of our shorter episodes, I just noticed. Okay, yeah, we're done for today. Our next episode will be in 2 weeks. That one's going to be a lot more meaty, I suspect, because we got the Mario movie, we got the Tetris movie, we got the Zelda. By the time you're watching or listening to this, Nintendo will have shown like actual gameplay details about Zelda. We may talk about it in a couple weeks. Who knows? But to make sure you don't miss any of that, you can subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, YouTube. Our channel there is at Random Nintendo, and that is also our Twitter handle at Random Nintendo, where you can also follow us to make sure you don't miss anything. Individually, we are on the Twitters as well. I am JSR7, Kevin is KVN and Angel is Wero, which is WEIRO _O, and it occurred to me after we recorded our last episode, I left out the _O when I said your name. First time I've ever done that. So if anyone's following a Wero that doesn't have an _O, not the right guy, and we are not responsible for ever good or bad content he's posting. So just got to put that legal disclaimer out there. But yeah, I think that's about it in terms of house, as you called it, cleaning.
Yeah, I like to keep it tidy. All right, I guess, Kevin, you got a final word?
Stop playing Leech.